Thank you for showing up so early in the morning. This is going to be a wonderful session. I would have been here either whether I was a moderator or not. But it's my pleasure to introduce Barbara, Jen, and Mika. And they'll probably do their own introductions. But, yeah. And we're going to try to do this by 9:15, 9:30, and have time for questions afterwards. So.
I'm not the one in charge. You guys are all the
Well, first I have to learn how to go. Welcome. First thing I want you to do is turn to your partner and tell them, seriously, I'm serious, and let's everybody participate. Tell them, what is the University of Alaska statewide? Talk, please. Okay, I'm curious. Who wants to answer? What is University of Alaska statewide? Anybody? Oh yeah. Do you mind moving up into our little house because we're such a small group? We're going to be an intimate group, and you've got 3 presenters in this room right now. We're going to introduce ourselves in a few minutes. We're starting out with
Or
questions.
you have to guess who.
Yeah, you have to guess which of the ones in the semi.
That's very good.
Yeah. So what did you come up with? What is University of Alaska statewide?
For us, for me anyway, at GVAC, it is just simply the teaching cohort. What little connection we've had with any colleges has been UAA.
UAA, okay. Yeah, because you've got that GVAC project going on. Anybody else? Yeah?
UAA, UAS, UAF, and the community campuses that serve a little bit further out.
Yes.
And really our goal is to make sure that we make education accessible.
So where does UA statewide fit in that?
The bigger umbrella.
Okay.
I think Lolly has a very good experience.
Lolly?
I was just, because from my experience working there, the governing UA statewide as an umbrella over, like you were saying, all the main campuses, but as a governing and auditing, their main function, and then the different vice presidents, and from one president, the initiative for K-12 outreach, and therefore was born back then the FEA now, and the Mentor Project, and that houses that. So that's K-12 outreach is unlike any of the President Gambo's vice president offices. So we deal more with people, like recruiting, growing, etc., mentoring, and then for the main function, when you go to Butterbridge, that's where the president is housed.
If we were giving prizes, you would win.
I mean, well, speaking from experience, so if you haven't been there, then I wouldn't have, if I hadn't been there, I wouldn't have known.
Well, and I was there when Lolly was there, and I didn't know at the time. We just asked the question, and there was kind of an opener that you would have participated in. We wanted you to answer, what is University of Alaska statewide? That was the question. And Lolly, can you give it one more time to just make it just a shorty? What is it? The umbrella one?
Just the umbrella organization that oversees all the main campuses and the rural campuses, and housed at the statewide office is the president's office of all the University of Alaska. He has vice presidents and and each of them. And I learned this. I traveled to KUC, and when I was working at KU's statewide, they said, "You're from statewide? Oh dear." so auditing, and all that governance, and then from President Hamilton's initiative on outreach, K-12, I believe, was born, and housed there is the future educators. It was future teachers back then, and then the Mentor Project, And there's one more. Oh,
No.
the job fair. The job fair was,
Yes, yes.
okay.
It's like, okay, Lolly, it's kind of the umbrella that oversees the rest of the campuses, but I don't think a lot of people recognize that it is an entity in and of itself. Next 3 questions are going to be really fast and simple. Turn to your partner, and Lolly just gave you the answer, so if you were a good listener, you're going to know. Tell your partner what you think FEA stands for. What do you think FEA stands for? And Barbara, you and Abby now have a threesome.
Okay, so you.
See?
Yeah, so we do.
But then I was like, oh wait, so.
Okay, next question. Turn to your partner. What does ATP stand for? We are educators or acronyms? ATP.
Mix up the chain of how.
Okay,
Okay.
next one.
We always have a lot.
ASMP. 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 But it does have to do, it is part of the Alaska Statewide, and it does have to do with developing curriculum, and we'll learn it together. It's new for me too. Okay. Sean, I'm gonna need your expertise while Barb talks to everybody about what we're gonna do today. Seriously, I don't.
So at the, seriously, so at the K-12 Outreach Office, we have 4 programs. And we're working, for a long time, it seemed like those 4 programs were really just 4 separate programs, and we're working on how to develop them together to make them into a K-12 outreach program more connected, and then also connected with the different campuses. So what we'll highlight today is what each of those 4 programs are about, what their goals are, who they work with, and then also how we're trying to integrate from one program into the next. And hopefully we'll have plenty of time to chat among ourselves about any kind of advice you can give back to us to strengthen those things, any kind of suggestions you have, any questions you have, and I think we have plenty of time to be able to do all of that.
Okay, we're going to edit that out of the recording, right? You know what it's like, group, when you do a PowerPoint on your jump drive, and then you do it on your computer, and then you do it here, and then you do it there, and you say, this is the one.
You want me to pass it around?
No, I don't yet. Thank you.
Got it.
This is the newest piece to Alaska Statewide. We now have an advisory board. It is the part I think we are all most excited about, and the members are listed on that slide. They come from, I'm going to show it to you in a couple of minutes. On the desk up at the front are the Alaska Cultural Standards. These are 6 of the people who put those standards together. The 7th one, Nancy Douglas. Nita, was she with you on that?
She
committee?
started off with yes.
Okay, okay. But that's who they are, and Nita is going to tell you a little bit about herself right now. She is the first presenter of this group today, and now you're going to know where she's sitting. Nita?
If you look on the map, you could see the Central Yupik, and I was born and raised at the very tip of this map. Now that you got me on the roll. Hui nga kusigmingo nga kwansyo. My parents were Iwisanke Shakti Ikavakshu. Yok Skutlada Makomimudo. The Bangitna was Skotsini Mantarisha Militna, which Kunga Katsabinish. My English name is Nita Reardon. My Yupik name is Yoklip, and I was born and raised in Catholic, Lower Yukon area. And but I taught in Bethel School District, local Cascatop School District, and 4 years up in Kotzebue, and worked in the district office in, when I moved back to Bethel. So I worked in the state for 28 years and retired, and now I live in Homer, this new Sukbap area, and it's really interesting. I was trying to hide away from everybody being retired, but as a native person, I realized that we're never going to be retired. We're always called on to do some things that maybe we've done very good for our students. So I have 4 children. I'm married to Michael Reardon. He's a retired Fish and Wildlife Service. He was born in Fairbanks and raised in Homer. And we're both down there. And we have four college graduate children. Our oldest and our youngest sons are both engineers. We have a biologist who's working in Bethel, and we have a teacher. So happy for her. And we have 5 grandchildren. The 2 older ones are going to school here, and the oldest grandson's goal is to be a doctor, so I'm so happy. And our granddaughter, she's just a teenager, wild one too. So we don't know what she will be. But we'll find out. And then I have a twin grandsons who are 2 years old, living in Bethel. And our beautiful granddaughter, named after my mother, Ikvak. They all have your good names. Is already a dancer at age 12. So that's me. And all the rest of the group are from all over the state. This group has been how we got together with this group. Years ago, Ray Barnhart had NSF, right? The Rural Systemic Initiative Grant, and he gathered every one of us throughout the whole state. One person that's supposed to be here, Bertha Stackhouse, isn't here from Barrow, but we all got together, and it was our first event. When we got together as Native teachers, we looked at one another. Where did I see that person? Because after we had received our degree, we went back to our areas to teach, and we didn't go anywhere. So except for our district where we were constantly being trained under new programs or whatever the districts have staff development. So when we got together, we said, we started telling stories about our childhood life, we started sharing our cultures, and we realized, how did you played that way too as little with our dolls, and we had the same similarities of what we did culturally in the whole state, but we never knew that. We never got to share each other's, but once we did, we started developing ideas with each other as educators. And we realized that's how the values started coming up. The posters, that's how the posters were developed. Because we realized that we had the same cultural values together across the state. And so we became a group, we grouped ourselves, and we started building. So we had another person to talk to of our issues from our districts. And so for this group, as the more we talked about our issues, the more things that we wanted to solve for the whole state. That's why the cultural standards came. We realized we needed to work together throughout the whole state.
Nita, why don't you put the culture standards in the chalk tray? Stand it up so we can all see it. Yeah, just, and it said that in there. If you don't have those, you need to get them. They're really important, and they're guiding everything that we're doing at university.
And this is only one example for educators, but we have several cultural standards, right? Did you bring them? One for youth, one for elders, and one for communities. Yeah, and then we have one for educators.
Yeah, it's online, and I'll show you later in the presentation where you can get it.
Koyana.
Thank you, Nita. Yes.
Just, you
Of course, Lolly.
teaching opportunities. So I know Moses and Ethan are from the same area, and so when Nita spoke about the cross-cultural gathering of the educators across the state, that was the first time I learned about Donangan people. And so I think he would call himself Donangan. And then Susan Pascavan, I learned living in the interior, each of the language groups they identify by Koikan, Gujek, whichever language group they're from. So Susan, I think, would be Koikan.
So, do you mind putting that down and I'll email you, Lolly.
Yeah.
I'll email you.
So just a teachable.
No, I think that's helpful.
Because I learned, yeah.
This is what they've provided me in the questionnaires that I've been giving them. I'm kind of the liaison with them right now. So I appreciate all information like that. Thank you very much.
Did I understand, is this advisory just for the K-12, not the president, not the? board
Yes,
of
it's just, it's
Yeah.
what you're going to get from us today are 4 programs. It's overlapping, it's overarching, it's a layer on art. You're gonna see in a slide, a couple of slides, what they're doing with this.
With this.
Good questions,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. Which brings us to the next 2 presenters. Dr. Barbara Adams, quickly or not quickly, whatever you're comfortable with, who are you?
So, Barbara Adams, I live in Nenana. I've been there 18 years, and I work at the university statewide now under one program under K-12 Outreach, which is the Alaska Statewide Mentor Project. And I do the research for the project, and I've taught math since ed. I was the math instructor for Intervolutions Campus for many years. I worked on Math in a Cultural Context curriculum development project with Jerry Lipka. And I've just been a math teacher for adults, always adults, for 20 years or so now. So I'm happy to be here.
And I'm Jan Little Bear. I get the name Little Bear. It's the first question everybody asks me from my Northern Cheyenne husband, whom I met when I was 10 years old. We got married 30 years ago. He's the one that brought me the paper I forgot this morning. I was a late bloomer, started to teach in Anchorage, Alaska, 3rd grade in the early 90s, and for the next 16 years, I taught 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, all in Mountain View. I absolutely loved it when I settled at middle school. That is where my heart is. I love working with middle school kids. Then I mentored for 3 years. I was one of the original mentors. That lead is kind of a polite, respectful thing they're letting me do because I'm not actively mentoring anybody right now other than myself. And I have the absolute joyous, blessed job of being the liaison between the board, the group of people you saw before, and everything that we're doing at K-12. So we were really excited to have this opportunity today to tell people what it is we are doing. The board has only been with us since November, I think. So we're still evolving. We invite every one of them to everything that we do, and as many can come. And Nita and Esther and Carol just last week worked with our 40 mentors and half a day of in-service, helping them be better prepared to work in their villages. This is us. This is the answer to the questions I had you doing. FEA, ATP, ASMP, and we're still going to continue to wonder about prepares till we get to that part this morning. I have been back with K-12 only since October myself, so this is what we do. However, this is the most important part of what we do. We now have this layer that oversees everything that we're doing. Everything that we're doing, we're going, God bless them because they're volunteering. They don't get paid for doing this. Nita's here out of her commitment and passion for education. So thank you. So we'll go take you through the first part. We want to attract students to UA. I'm not somebody who reads the slide to you, although I actually thought about it today. So take a quick look. This is what FEA is doing. I ought to have you stand up and talk, Lolly. Lolly, when I was a mentor in 2004, Lolly was the director of FEA. And did you say it was called something different then?
Future teachers, yeah. We had wanted educators at first, but that's the way the grant was written by the grant writers.
Okay.
I could add a little bit.
Okay, let me show the 3 slides, and then I will let you add a little bit, because we've got 3 slides that tell you about FEA, and then Lolly's probably got 600 slides internally. Why don't you give us a 2 or 3 minute, if you're willing?
Koyana, winga yuktu akka atjafalik awaka kasadut lali karpa. Azabjak yakmi hunga koyanga tais fonga yuki. I said thank you, and Yupik is my first language. Atjafalik is one of my many Yupik names, and I go by Lali Karpa. And I was invited by Anita to come to this. Yesterday, if you were at Graham's presentation, he talked about how we work. We are a springboard from the shoulders of people before us, our ancestors, and other people that have been trailblazers. Oh no, Dolores, you have to jump.
Okay, as soon as we're rearranged, do you mind? See, it's up We were just into the future educators of Alaska, and only because Lolly is here and she's wonderful, she took my invitation to tell us a little bit about it, because when I was a mentor in 2004, I met Lolly then, and she was the director of this program, and it would be foolish for me to try and tell you about it when I have her in the room. So she graciously agreed to tell us a little bit about it. Thanks.
I'll do the introduction. Oyana Adam, Kuinga Atchapalagawa, Azajak Yakama, Koyanga, Kwangudamani Koyukluda. For the translation, I said thank you, and thank you for having me. And Nita had invited me to be part of this group today. And I'm from Mountain Village. The Yupik name is Azajahiga. And Kwikbakminunga, that gives you a geographic location of the state, the river, the big river. But I'm on the lower end of it towards the Bering Sea. And my parents are Johnny and Marianne Shepherd, and I come from a large family of which Nita's part of. I want to welcome our guests, our distinguished keynote speakers, Dr. Graham Smith, and then our elder, Dolores. So glad you're here. And then all of you. I feel comfortable speaking because I have experience, and I was working with the future educators of Alaska when it was future teachers. So I just mentioned your name, Dr. Graham, and I was saying how you shared about we are, I don't, I'm paraphrasing, but the springboard from, the ancestors' work, the trail breakers before us. So I would be remiss in not mentioning, some of the different people that have an influence for those that, an impact for those of us that work in the university system as Indigenous peoples. And it's a crucial role, it's a challenging role to be an Indigenous person when you know what your people values, aspirations, etc., and how and what works out in the small communities, or as we negotiate and transition into an urban or an institution. And our kids within these programs will be going through the same thing. So I was in that position, but thankfully I had been involved with the first, Arctic was the first teacher prep program at the University of Alaska in the 60s, and Dr. Barnhart was, he was brand new to the state in 69, and so he was part of that. Exceed cross-cultural development educators teacher prep program, and I always speak from UAF Aranalda because my experience is mostly from there. So there's some great things that are going on at the other main campuses. So Exceed produced a large number of teachers from the 70s on until the mid-80s, when the program no longer existed. And one teacher I know from the 70s still teaches today, Lottie Jones from Mexico. And anyway, I'll share a little bit more about her. So the next, there were different initiatives. The ones that I remember after Exceed was Rural Educator Preparation Program. And all these were, the ones that I know of were grant funded. Native Teachers for Alaska, Office of Indian Ed funded that for UAF, and it was 3 years. And then,
This is one good example of how we, when our elders come here, we must stop and start bringing them into our circle.
so, many of you heard Marie give the blessing yesterday, morning. So, Koyana Dai. I was just giving a little history of the Native educators, and then how future teachers came to be. So I'm at UAF with the different teacher prep programs. The last one that we were involved in, Alaska Native Teacher Preparation Project, and that was 4 years, and it was looking at supporting our Native teachers with cultural mentors, and Nita was one of them. So we had a Native mentor mentoring our new Native teachers, and you know, that's a whole workshop in itself. So so those are the shoulders of people that we stand on. The trailbreakers, the elders that work with our teachers, and our teachers in the different teacher prep programs. When the Alaska Rural Systemic Initiative, which was a National Science Foundation funded project, happened in, I was recruited in '95, December, and I know Sean's been there, you know, almost for all the 10 years or more that it's been around. And then that's where a lot of the Native educators and elders from the 5 or 7 cultural regions came together, and we have different communication styles, different languages, etc. So we're learning to communicate. And I myself, living in Fairbanks, I say I'm a guest in the Fairbanks, in the Athabascan region. And so I know what the protocol is for me as a guest up there. I'm learning, you know, there's, I don't know how to, you know, put it in succinctly, but so there's protocols for me as a Yupik living in the Athabascan region. And so for myself, I worked as a coordinator for pulling together the Native Educators Conference that Alaska RSI funded, and then editor of the Sharing Our Pathways that you'll see online at Alaska Native Knowledge Network. And we were really blessed to have the leadership of Oscar and Ray and Dorothy Larson and Frank Hill, the late Frank Hill, where they trusted us. I've never been an editor before, so they trusted us to, you know, be in those positions because, you know, of where we came from, our indigenous background, and then, you know, where we have gone in our higher education. So NSF, where a lot of the educators' involvement was reinforced by the formation of Native Educator Associations. From there gave the birth of Alaska Native Educator Association, of which Nita is one of the members. And I mentioned all that because Future Teachers of Alaska had partners, and Amy was a partner, and PETAS was a partner. PETAS is another, you know, excellent program funded from the same Alaska Native Education Program Monies, special appropriations by the late Ted Stevens out of DC. So PETAS was a partner, and then we had never done growing our own, having future teacher clubs in our small villages. So we had to learn how to do that. And we went to, as the director, I relied on the partners, and we, Esther, Yayuk and I went to Yukon-Kuskokwim Health Corporation. They have a career pathways. They adapted a national health curriculum for their Yupik region health curriculum. And so we learned how to teach kids about becoming teachers from their model, and that gave birth to the poster series. So they had poster series featuring, highlighting our own people in these positions to encourage and inspire our kids to go into the medical field. So the other partners were the school districts. The first three were Nome Public Schools, Nome has 3 school sites, I think, right in Nome. Bering Strait has 11 to 15 sites all around the sound there. Lower Kuskokwim has 25 sites, 23 to 25 sites, 27 villages. And so these districts helped us in the Native educators on how do we do future teacher clubs. And PETA's had a model that we also looked at. The first director, Rhonda Hickok, we met with her and she gave us a lot of ideas. So I wanted to thank all those people. You know, there's a lot of different partners, a lot of different people who said, were our role models. And I wanted to end, because I know there's other speakers here and other programs, those communities, Dr. John Wise had one of the first future teacher clubs before FTA, FEA came on. 2002, he worked with individual teachers recruiting from across the state to be an advisor for a future teacher club. And so the first student gathering that he pulled together, he brought 7 future teacher club students to the job fair. So he wanted the students to work both ways. One, for them to learn about, educators, the process that was going on there. Plus, the new teachers looking for positions would hear from the students on what they thought good teachers were in their small communities, and they were very honest. So 6 girls and 1 boy in 2002. And last couple of years, we've limited the annual student gathering, and the 10th one is coming for future teachers to 100 students, and just because of funding. But across the state, going from those 30 or more students in 2002, and when I left there about I think over 300 students in clubs across the state in the small villages. So and I don't know what the numbers are now.
I'll tell you in just a minute.
Okay, thank you. And then, so ending, I really want to thank those people that the Bering Strait superintendent mandated every site in Bering Strait would have a future teacher club. So you had a kindergarten future teacher club. When they're going to the next grade, those kids asked, is there a future teacher club for first graders? And there wasn't one, so they recruited a teacher to do that. So the students are their own advocates for what they would like to see. We had one immersion, and it continues today, FEA club that conducts their meetings in Yupik. And these are 4th, 5th, 6th graders, and that's in Bethel with Ayapun Ladi Jones. And and she's still an advisor at 40 years of teaching, and she's been doing FEA advising for 10 years. So the first people that looked at how do we do this, the communities really supported their students. When I visited some of the communities, the parents would come up and say, I'm so happy that we have this club for our kids to learn about becoming teachers, but But, and they all emphasize, the teachers are learning from the kids. You know, we emphasize having cultural activities, and I think those continue. Okay, so the clubs had cultural activities, and what they ended up were academic clubs also. I have to mention this, the kids, we went out to the Natural Future Educator Association conferences across the nation, and it was the first time our kids went out there, and our kids were teachers out there. They wanted to know about Alaska, and we were put on the spot. We were prepared to learn. We weren't prepared to, you know, present ourselves, but our kids did a great job. So I do want to thank all those people in the communities that tried to figure out how to grow our own teachers in this, you know, structured form. It's always been ongoing, I think, you know, naturally, but with this structured effort. And then for those people that, you know, countless hours of working with students, traveling with them, and just trailblazing. And I'm excited that it's in, you know, all these new other efforts are now part of the Future Educators, and we just hope it becomes a sustainable part of the university, and it also is interwoven, and there's a direct career pathway. So when the students are taking dual credits in high school, they come on campus or they take classes at home, that there's a welcoming committee for them from the Native educators or the Native faculty at the School of Ed, if we have any there. And then on to the Alaska Native mentors, if we have any of them, because of culture-based curriculum. I'm really talking fast because each of these have points that are really crucial for that Alaska Native.
And actually, Lolly, you've set me up perfectly to talk about, we're in the process of coming up with a new dual credit class that the kids can take in high school, and then when they go on to college, it will count there, so they've already got 3 credits out of the way. And I
just want to say one thing.
her.
Okay, I brought Lolly for this reason.
Thank you.
And this is one example of what Dr. Graham had mentioned yesterday. If communities want to do it, it has to come from bottom up. And the Future Teacher Club, if we allow our students and our teachers to do their own thing, it will grow. But if we were told how to do it, it's gonna push us down further. So it's a one good example of how communities can get together and work up from there.
And for our researcher colleague, Nita, I can say we have empirical evidence, because 2 weeks ago, I was lucky enough to sit with one of our other advisors. Those of you that were here early on saw the list of our cultural advisors. We sat and we judged 19 future educators of Alaska speeches. Those kids stood in front of us and they gave a 5 to 10 minute speech about an educator in their village that was most important to them. And just sitting here spontaneously, one little girl was in her 4th year of FEA, Lolly. She probably had you, and she was just an 8th grader. And it was, you know, it gives me goosebumps now just to remember her and her talk. She was excellent. You know she's going to be a really important, efficient, effective, quality teacher. So, Kiana Lolly, everybody give her a round of her hand. She jumped in for that. Well, those of you that came in, she isn't one of the presenters. I just know her, and it would have been foolish of me to try to talk about the program that she's been so instrumental in. So thank you for spontaneously giving us that rich background. Really appreciate it. I'm going to move us quickly through ATP, Alaska Teacher Placement. We've got brochures on the table. When you leave, you can come pick up whatever you want. I wasn't going to pass them out. Our desks are little. Just know that there are some hard copy resources for you when you leave. Basically, reading the slide, this is what they do. One of the great things about the ATP, I'm going to back up and do one more thing, Lolly, FEA. If you go to the FEA website, and I provide it to you in this handout, it's towards the end, you can see all the digital stories that the kids put together. And they're so exciting because the kids created these digital stories about an important educator in their village. And they're online right now, so you just click on that resource and you'll see these kids talking to you about an educator from their village. Okay, fast forward ATP. We work with teachers, we work with districts getting them teachers, we work with teachers finding them districts, and we're having a job fair next week. So I don't think I'm going to say too much more about that. It's really self-explanatory. The website gives you rich information. There's a not quite 24/7, but there's a website that you can go to and ask questions. And some of the mentors serve on that committee. Abby, you did just recently, didn't you? She's online for a couple of hours answering questions to people calling from all over the United States. So that's something that ATP does. There are some dates, and this is kind of your cue, Barbara, because you're about ready to go on. I had planned to have us stop and ask questions, FEA, ATP, and talk a little bit as we went through. So before we go to ASMP, the Alaska Statewide Mentoring Project, are there questions, comments, things you want to learn more about FEA? Yes.
My granddaughter's in the program, and this is her last year, and she's really having a hard time financially. What can people do to help these people who are in their last year? Because they're not getting scholarships anymore. They're having to work, and they're not getting paid at the schools, and yet they're teaching.
That's a good question. And I see Barbara writing, so are you recording that question for us to follow up on?
Of course,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. I don't know. But we are a resource, and we will put you in touch with somebody that maybe can help. I don't know.
Well, she's graduating
Yeah.
next month, but this year has been a hard year
They-
for all of us because we're having to contribute
To help get her
to
through.
help her out. So it's been a hard year for her because she doesn't like to ask. And it just happened that a friend of hers said, is there anybody in the family going to help her? And it was shocking. So I called her mother and said, your daughter's having a hard time and not telling us financially. So that part of the program is very difficult the last year.
The last year.
Where is she attending?
Other questions, Lolly?
Where was she?
Ketchikan?
High
She's
school?
in Ketchikan.
High school?
College. I think you've mentored her, Teresa Barnell.
We will, before you leave, I will get some names from you.
Okay.
There really isn't, full ride scholarships for students who want to become teachers. We've got great scholarships for like ANSA, engineering, all these different fields. And we've struggled to find full ride scholarships for our students who are education majors. And Office of Indian Aid was one of the programs that I was working in recently that does that. And now they only fund tribal colleges across the nation and not the higher ed institutions. So it's a really, I know our corporations are stretched, our foundations, and it's hard for education majors. And then there's different corporations like Walmart and these different entities that have scholarships, and you just have to kind of do the search. Does she have someone helping her with her?
I think she does. Okay.
Yes, Larry.
Could I just make a suggestion for now? Of course, it'd be too late for this one. But look up on the webpage Catching the Dream.
Catching the Dream,
It's run by Dr. Dean Shavers.
okay?
He's out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've served on advisory committee for him. But, being from Nebraska and being in the Native American teaching circuit until retirement, I got to be good friends with him, and he is good. He's a good guy. He used to be the Native American Scholarship Foundation. He changed the name. And like example, we had a couple kids in couple graduates from GVAC, and they were in college in Minnesota. And well, one of the mothers worked at the administration office, and then this daughter's roommate And somehow the funding for textbooks got mixed up. And they didn't get the funding for textbooks, so they're up there in Minnesota down there. Excuse me, I'm from out of town. Anyway, they were without textbooks. I was able to connect everybody, and he sent them, it was like 500 apiece for textbooks, so they could get them, 10 days into this college year. And also, like our cadre, our cohort, we've got teaching cohort. A couple times there's been a mess up with funding for like the textbooks or the some math calculators, and I was able to get him to send them checks for them.
Well, I think that's a great
So
resource.
it's a good place to tap, and it's for Native Americans, and
Thank
he
you.
does cover all 4 years. His application, to be honest, is a Bearcat, okay? It is a Bearcat, but if he fills it out, if the student has, at the time they graduated from high school, if they have a 3.0 average, 90% attendance, they will get something. And they'll get it, and if you apply, a senior makes no difference to him. And actually, if anything, it's kind of cheap because he funds a senior and they graduate and he counts them as a graduate. Is what hope to get through. But if you look it up, Catching the Dream.
And that's something that we can put in our resources and get out there to everybody too, so thank you. I'm going to move us on to.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, that's fine. I love it when we have too much to do, that's a good sign. So, we've talked about FEA. I'm quickly running us over ATP because I know I have hard copy resources for you. The Alaska Statewide Mentor Project is something that started in 2004. You've got two of us in the room. Abby is one current, I'm one of the originals. So we've been going for 9 years. Again, I kind of just put these things up here for you to read. It's one of our most successful educational programs in Alaska. This third bullet, the aligned with Alaska's professional and culturally responsive teaching standards. This is the part that Nita and Esther and Carol just delivered a half a day in service in Fairbanks with our 40 mentors, who then work with 300 teachers.
We have 430 this year.
I'm about to come to the slide that I want you to take over, if you don't mind. This is first year. I like to show these two pictures just to show you how we've grown. This was back in 2004, 2005. This is today. This is this year's group, which takes us here. You want to take over?
Sure.
And I'll click
So-
for you.
Could I ask, are you gonna share the history of how the mentor project came to be?
I'll do my
Yeah,
best.
because there's people
Yeah.
that don't know.
Yeah, I'll do my best. So just to step back a little bit, when we say mentors in this context, we're talking about experienced Alaska teachers and training them to become mentors to serve new teachers to the profession all around the state. So it is at a teacher level. I think it mirrors somewhat what Lolly was saying historically with FEA because there is support at that upper level, and that was very important. The president and the commissioner came together and both said, we think this is, teacher retention in our state is a big enough concern. We want to do something about it. And they formed a partnership between the university and the Department of Education at the state level, which we don't have very often. And so working through that process, we've now been through 2 university presidents, 3 commissioners, several directors at the actual ASMP level, and several more, hundreds of people who basically were standing on the work that they've done. So Lori Scholes was our original director, but there's probably stuff I don't know. I joined the project in 2008, and I know that there were some pilot testing before that. The program itself stands on the New Teacher Centers model, and that's out of Santa Cruz. However, ever since the beginning, that 2004 cohort you saw there, we've always been working on Alaskanizing the model, making it fit our situation. And part of that is how the mentors work with the teachers. You know, down in California, they go into their schools every week and work with them for an hour. Well, we're sending mentors, you know, out to any of the locations around the state, and so that's obviously not feasible. And so we do have weekly contact, but that's through electronic, you know, or telephone or email, Skype. But face-to-face contact is on a monthly basis. Mentors try to be there at least half a day in the classroom, observing the teacher. It's data-based and and totally non-evaluative. So mentors are in observing, working, gathering information that can support the teacher to grow in their practice. And maybe I did hit most of that. Yeah, our mentors, they're fully released, meaning that they don't have other duties. This is their job. So the program says we value that teacher so much that we're going to give you someone who, this is their job. It's not just something extra that happens later. And maybe I'll, open it up for a couple other people to share more about that.
I was there when they, in 2003, they were just ending their pilot year. So they wanted to see how it worked, and Kodiak School District was one of the first school districts to pilot. But the idea of, there were like 18, 19 mentors, and each of them assigned with anywhere from 14 new teachers, and these new teachers were spread across the state. And, you know, and from there to now, as in with any field, we've had at least 2 at the most, I think, of Alaska Native mentors out of the 14 to 19. And you have 20 now, or?
Numbers wise, we've had 3 or 4. Abby's our only one now, but we have Native American. We do have some others. And the very first year, our numbers were crazy, and we went to many, many districts. But the one I think you're talking about, the Kodiak, there were just 3 or 4 mentors, and that's when Lori was one, and Eric and Kim. And they did the pilot, and then they came back, and then they hired 22 of us, of which Kim and Eric were also brought back. And then each of us were sent, they tried to keep us in districts. Like I went to Lower Yukon and Lower Kuskokwim, so that I was dealing with one of the indigenous groups, not 4 or 5, but that didn't always work out, and 14 would have been a lovely number. I had 22 my first year teachers. And when you look at this is, the single dots are district sites in Alaska where there's just one school for that district. And then you see our road system. And by road system, I mean the one that connects us to Canada and gets us down to the lower 48. That's it. And then you have the hubs that are Yugo this year with the new grant, the urban places, the big stars. And then we're mentoring in all of these places. The next slide's going to be the one that shows you numbers. But here are the hubs out in the bush that you go to. And so this is where we fly next. But take a look at this next one, which is where we go this year. And our teacher ratio this year, I think, is 1 to 11. But this is where we go in the little planes to work with the teachers in the villages. So this is kind of this year. And these next numbers, again, are, I'm going to go back to you, Barb, because she knows this information best.
How long do the mentors stay with each new teacher in the village?
Right, so the goal is half a day a month with the teacher. Oftentimes they can't certainly fly out, spend half a day and fly back. So most of the time they're overnighting. If they have 2 or 3 teachers there, they'll stay longer so that they can get that in. But that's our typical model. And I'll ask Abby, would you like to?
We also Skype when we can, and then most of the time it's either email or phone. The rest of the time.
My last year, I had 8 teachers at one site, and I was there for about 7 days. I was always there through a weekend. So I would just go out and you do all kinds of things with the mentors because you're kind of living with them, and I mean that literally. Sometimes you actually stay in their place with them, so with the teachers, not mentors. So you want to address the numbers?
Sure, so here's our numbers over the years. Like we said, we're in year 9. So you can see our mentor numbers have been growing. We are at 39 now, and that's because we do have additional funds. So this is the original funding was a line item from the legislative appropriation. through the Department of Ed. You can see in year 8, we really had a lower number of mentors because we did take some cuts from the Department of Ed. And now we have some additional funding coming in through the university, which is specific to extend to urban regions, because our urban districts, we've never really been able to serve them fully. And we're doing a fancy research design now where we can serve more teachers in our urban districts while randomly assigning them to getting a mentor or not, because they have so many new teachers in those districts. We're hoping that that research from that grant is going to just solidify the results that we're finding, that the legislature will look at that and try to fund even more so that every new teacher around the state, maybe even also just new to Alaska, can receive a mentor. You can see we've been in different districts throughout. We've been in all of the districts except for 2 at this time, if you include Mount Edgecombe. So districts invite us in. We're not something imposed on them. It's at the superintendent level. They get to choose if they'd like us to work with them or not. And so over time, we've worked with all but 2. You can see the number of schools is usually around that 170 to 190. Early career teachers, that's first and second year in the profession, around that 380 to 400. And then that caseload is something that keeps fluctuating and we're trying to work out, but that's how many teachers each mentor serves. And we have an extensive research model. We're very, very data driven, and that's seen in the fact that they do fund a full researcher. That's myself, and now I actually have 2 other members of the research team, so the research team's growing, which is exciting. We gather descriptive type of data, but we also gather qualitative data. We want to know how people feel about the work, and we ask people at all levels. We ask the teachers, the mentors, the principals, the superintendents. We are working on trying to identify how can we get students' input on the mentors coming and supporting their teachers. So that's a new piece that we're going to work on. We know our goals are increasing teacher retention and student achievement. So we measure those and we do actual quantitative type of stuff, and we break it down by rural and urban, first year and second year, we just do lots of that kind of stuff. And and I have some research results over there if you're interested. And part of what we're doing in the urban place now is, again, taking it to the higher level to try to really solidify if this program is as effective as we believe it is.
And so we're always, always, always looking at data, which takes us to, what do we do with all of that data? It's guiding everything we're doing. This is one teacher's remarks. Interesting, these remarks come from surveys that are due tomorrow, I think.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yep.
Yeah.
These are last year's.
Yeah, here's another.
So
teacher.
the mentors themselves gather data. We try to do data at every single level.
That's our website. You can get a lot more information from that, and you've got the handout that gives you that. Because we're so close to reaching the point where we're going to have questions on everything, I think I will just continue and take us through the prepares. Those of you that weren't here at the beginning, I told you I'm still learning what prepare stands for, so I have to read the slide. I don't even know. We've got handouts for everything, so when you leave, you don't have to worry, about being able to get something. We've got it for you. So what we've done so far is the Red Arch was getting our future educators of Alaska involved. The next arch was the Alaska teacher placement, working with teachers, getting them in and out of districts, helping them, find the place they want to be. Our next arch was keeping them there and quality. Everything we're doing at Alaska, at University of Alaska statewide, is about quality teaching, number 1, and student improvement academically, number 2. Those 2 things, that's what we're working on. That's the 2 goals for all 4 of these programs. So now we're into growing our own leaders. Prepares is new to the umbrella, Lolly. This is something that our new director brought with her. She's been working 20 years in Alaska with, her name's Dr. Catherine Berry Bertram. She's been working with curriculum, mostly science and math, out in the village, place-valued lessons. And so she brings with her 3 curriculum developers that are putting together lessons that are done in collaboration with villagers from fish camps and all kinds of things where they're putting together curriculum. So now we have a part of the circle that's going to help support and enrich those teachers that have been homegrown so that they've got the resources that they need to continue to be successful. I've got 2 brochures over here on that. You can pick them up. One says prepares. Okay, who figured out? Does it tell us what it is yet? It actually stands for something, but it's just one grant of many that deals with curriculum. We happen to like the word prepares because we think it's helping to continue to prepare and help teachers to be quality. So, come on.
So
Yes.
it is there's an Alaska component and also a Hawaii component. So if the turtle is confusing anyone yet, it's because of our Hawaii counterparts.
We've got students collecting climate data here in Alaska and students collecting climate data in Hawaii, and they're each tracking one another's and working on that and coming together for those reasons, for comparing and contrasting. And curriculum is coming out of that project. So that is why we have the turtle. Thank you. And the turtle's not even a month old, so so we're growing, yes. Some more on what we're doing. Place-based research leading to curriculum that is relevant because it's coming right out of the villages. These are some more of the grants that are helping to fund the curriculum that is being developed. Those of you curious, the top picture is from Napakiak, Lower Kuskokwim. The bottom one is from Easter 2005, Little Diomede. Okay, you have now been with us long enough that if I were to ask you the question that I asked at the beginning when we were a smaller number, what is FEA? You should be able to say, Future Educators of Alaska began with future teachers. ATP, I started out this session with acronyms because educators are nothing but acronyms. I'm sorry, that's just what we talk in acronyms. ATP is Alaska Teacher Placement. ASMP is Alaska Statewide Mentor Project. Each of them comes with its own logo to help us at University Alaska Statewide keep them separate. And prepares, I'm still not sure I told you what the PRE stands for. And who can tell me what goes on top of all of this?
The board. Oh man, there you go.
That's okay, here it
That's the
comes.
advisory board.
That is, yeah, you do. And this has only been since November. We've been fortunate enough to bring them on board. But they now oversee and contribute to and advise us on everything. So I think I'm going to make it spin again. I'm never sure. Yep. That's just to let you know they are guiding everything that we do. Thank you, Lolly. Preparing responsive educators using place-based authentic research in Earth systems. You can see why I don't even try to learn it. It's easier to put it in your hand. And these are available for you to take. Lolly, you've got to go on the road with me. You know that. Okay, that takes us to the websites. I put them in your handout so that you have them to get more information for yourself. Which takes us to our 2 overarching objectives of everything we do at University of Alaska Statewide. We are here to retain quality teachers, hopefully indigenous to Alaska, and we are here to help students improve academic achievement. That is our goal at University of Alaska Statewide.
Yeah, at the K-12 Outreach Office of University, because we are the only programs at Statewide, is the K-12 Outreach Office.
Yep, that is us. Which takes us to, if I can get the video to run, we will see. Dr. Kathy Barry Bertram is the director, and I was online earlier. We'll see if this is gonna work for us. I told her I was letting her have the final word.
The mechanism that we have set up statewide is to interest students in the career of teaching in middle and high school, move them through university, schools, and colleges of education, place them in jobs through the Alaska Teacher Placement Program, have them mentored as early career teachers through the Alaska Statewide Mentor Program, and then provide them with continuing education that will not only encourage them to learn best practices for encouraging Indigenous students and others, but then to give back to their community and encourage students to become involved in the profession of teaching.
That's what we do. So we have about, how do you like that, Sean? 15, 20 minutes for questions from you on any of the areas that we talked about. Yes, and you can direct them. Lolly, obviously, now you gotta really be kind to her because she's here she just popped in and helped us out spontaneously. Nita's here, Barbara's here, I'm here, and we're all here, and we are all a resource to one another. Oh, definitely Abby. Abby and I emailed last night, and I told her where to come over here this morning. Yeah. So, again, you had your hand up?
Yes, sorry I came in a little late, I got in the wrong classroom. Anyhow, I might have missed this information, but I read in the briefing that you guys are going to be talking about the Alaska Cultural Standards and the 4 strands, and so I'm guessing those are the 4 strands there?
No.
Okay, so I have the packet. I'm getting, I work in the school district in Fairbanks, and I'm getting ready to teach some of our teachers as well as other support staff on the Alaska Cultural Standards. And, you know, I have this envisioned plan, but I just want to hear, you know, as a collective group maybe, you know, what your thoughts are as I'm teaching, you know, our teachers who are teaching our future children.
So,
or our future leaders. Sorry.
Let me paraphrase because I'm going to go to Nita first. She's one of, and Lolly, were you on the committee too?
Yeah.
Both of these ladies were on the committee to create these standards for educators. So your answer lies here, but I want to make sure I have the question. You have a unit you've put together and you're wondering if it's going to meet these standards? Is that your question?
No. What I'm going to be doing is training teachers who may not have had cultural experiences or cultural knowledge so that they can implement the cultural standards effectively, because right now they're sitting, you know, on a shelf. They're not being used, and teachers aren't, you know, using cultural practices within their classrooms. So my hope is to educate as many folks as I can and get them, you know, in line with those cultural standards and expand their minds, expand their, you know, comfort level dealing with the
I'm going to say,
people.
first of all, you know, this would take a half a day to answer you, I'm sure. So
Sure.
I'm going to ask Nita and then Lolly and Abby, if you've got something you want to throw in too, feel free to. So, yeah. Of course.
No.
Graham.
Oh, please.
No, I had a sort of a quite different question really to the in relation to the whole circle that you've created. So I'll leave it till we've dealt with this. But I can say something on the cultural standards, just to say that in the New Zealand context, we have taken the model from here. We've looked at the various booklets and reinterpreted them in the New Zealand context. And we have a similar issue, but it's the same issue that's with all textbooks. Give them out and they sit on the shelves and people don't use them. But I think we've taken that really as a good thing, because actually you shouldn't actually teach to the textbook, but people need to get the message about culture. There are issues here related to culture that need to be interrogated and incorporated in the teaching methodologies. If people are still leaning on the textbook, they need some more mentoring, in my view, because they should really have inculcated a lot of those things and actually be driven by the needs of the students and the community in the place-based context that they're working. but that's one of the things that we would thank Alaska for, actually, is developing those cultural standards, because we've used them to, put it politely, club our policy people over the head with the New Zealand to say, here's some baselines
Right.
that have been set out, that have been accepted by all the participants, and they're useful. So that's where we've got to in New Zealand. But that's what I would say, is that the mentoring process should lead to people inculcating these rather than waving the book around.
So in Fairbanks, there are only about 50 Alaska Native teachers in the school district. And it seems as though it's them and their friends, or maybe their associates around them, that are incorporating a lot of our values and ways of knowing into the teaching system. And it's folks that we have been recruiting as a district from, the lower 48 and other places that come in, and I don't think that they're adequately prepared, or that they're open to change. But maybe if I offer this as a course, then they will, be receptive and engaging in our community. Because what I've observed is that not many non-natives participate in the local Alaska Native events, or invite elders into their classrooms, or go on field trips to explore, the place around them, or involve it. And so I want to lead by example in the class, and so I have a lot of that right there, just kind of incorporated. And it is a short class, and I'm only one person, but I'm hoping that small beginnings will flower out.
Which is great, and actually this does lead to the question that I really wanted to ask, which was about the circle, because you talked about leadership, and a crucial thing to me is, in this process, is it's not individual teachers, it's actually the leadership also in schools which create the opportunity and the support for these things to happen. So it's one thing to, I think, gear up all the individual teachers to be, switched on. It's another thing to create the learning environment of the total school through informed leadership and so on. I'm just wondering, in the different elements that you've folded in, you did mention leadership, was how you were dealing with that. The reason I'm sensitive to this is because we currently hold the contract, our institution, to train every secondary school principal in New Zealand in culturally appropriate, facilitating in a culturally appropriate environment in the secondary schools. So that's over 390 principals in New Zealand.
That's awesome.
So it's a major project. So that's why I'm tuned into this, because some of those principals are in space.
Yeah, so it's a great question, because I feel like, we have superintendent buy-in, we work at a superintendent level, but the principal level, there's a partner program out there, the Alaska Administrators Coaching Project, that works with principals, but they end up working with a much smaller amount as well, and they're off doing their own thing. And so what we've been trying to do is figure out how can we constantly find ways of sharing with them what we're learning, because of course we get that back from teachers too, who's out in space and who's grounded, who's supportive and who isn't. And so we're trying to figure out ways of doing that, and I'd have to say it's a very slow piece and probably a missing piece.
So I want to add to, back when they first started the new teacher center model for the mentoring, because it goes back to exactly what Yetibe is asking is, I need help. And so asking back in 2004 for a cultural component for the statewide mentor project. So I'm really excited that in 2012 we got the advisory board. I mean, this is great, you're making gains, which is, understandable that, people are seeing it now that, here's a connection that we need to Alaskanize this model, the statewide mentor project model. And so for each of those other outreach programs, being the first director with FEA, the partners with Native educators, and we wanted a foundation that was culturally based, and how do you fit that within the university system? So that's where, you know, we had a role, a challenging role. And so for the cultural component, it sounds like it's just starting here with what you were asking about the cultural standards from the Mentor project.
Good.
And then working with your specific school district and with individuals. I think, does ANEA offer cultural standards training? Implementing?
This is very new. It's all new within our state, and I'm glad you're asking that question. We've been mumbling over how do we get this, and so we've been thinking about it too at the same time, and talking to other teachers. Esther was here, but she came up with articles that you could look. What is a culturally responsive school? If you Google and find how do we get this across to teachers, you know, there are articles out there that will have, the best articles that we found were from Arizona State, because Arizona in itself has that, a lot of, at the university level, they have teacher prep who have of their own local people to teach some of these courses, where in our state we still have not have anybody, but we have those people who are experienced in teaching the cultural component, and having our lead teachers to be aware, to become observers, and learn about our cultures and our student background knowledge. How much do they know? When our kids come into school, do they know their background? Our environment right now outside, if you see outside, for instance, it's snowing. And we're supposed to have April, what? April showers, spring, May flowers. See the two differences? We still have snow in April in Alaska. Those are some of the concepts that we really have to talk and bring forth. And how do you change that? How do you change that concept that we were taught before into our cultural view? And how do you bring that into the classrooms? My part of my training in Lower Kuskokwim School District was orienting new teachers into Yupik. And we have cultures all over. And I have to think, when I do my part, I have to take away what I was taught in the Western world and start thinking in Yupik. And then I will start using my own cultures, and I have to erase where I've been, and then start thinking all in my own culture and language. And we have a philosophy poster, Yuya poster, that says, Kung Buddha, Yupik ni ang lityukut kanwo yutut atokulubi. We Yupik people grow using our foundations or teachings from our sayings, teachings, values from our elders. That part, if I start going into that part, then I know who I am. And I usually start with the teachers, new teachers, do you know who you are?
Yeah.
And they'll be stunned. Things like, what is culture?
Yes.
Things like, and then it becomes alive. To me, just because of that poster, I become alive. And I invite them to my culture. And so that's my start of my course that I developed and at the university. And I was so fortunate that I had Ray Barnhart as my guide, and I asked him if I could use that to teach the teachers in LKSD. It's just one model. That's just a model.
Could I suggest something?
Yeah.
I wonder if you made the request to ANEA for a presentation for you on implementing the cultural standards? Is that something you guys could do?
It's something we could do probably from
Because you could get it direct from them.
at this point, it's run through the UAF system, and I only put down one facilitator, and I fudged that I'm gonna have elders and sub people.
She is a nova.
So maybe we don't say the organization, but yeah, let's definitely talk. And it sounds like, you know, what you're saying is, you know, in the intro part is what I was already thinking of, and so it's helping kind of just affirm, you know, I'm heading in the right path. I just don't want to be like the only one saying something.
Sometimes that's the best
Fairbanks.
person. Don't sell yourself short. Abby, and then we had a question here. Yes, Abby.
I'd like to share in two parts. This is my first year as a statewide mentor. Previously, I worked for LKSD and a year in UB School District in Lower Yukon. And in LKSD, I worked as a UPIC immersion teacher for 13 years. So, you know, our classrooms were really absorbed with culture. And so after leaving LKSD, during my 1 year of, just to give you a little background, during my one year of retirement, I was invited to an organizational meeting with the Alaska Humanities Forum, who had a grant called C3, standing for Creating Cultural Competence. And so during that meeting, we further defined that grant, and during that time I was invited to, they asked if I would be interested in being a mentor. And so seeing that title, Creating Cultural Competence, you know, I was attracted to it. And so that grant servicing 2 districts, LKSD and Northwest, I was asked if I wanted to cover LKSD. So I served 12 teachers there, and 3 in the villages and 1 in the high school in Bethel. And so with that grant, we took 15 new teachers and spent a week in a summer camp, fish camp, where the new teachers, right out of, you know, wherever out of state, we didn't have running water in the fish camp. We didn't have cell phone or internet service, maybe when we went to the village. Those kind of conditions, and I really wondered about them, you know, no running water. And they had to take turns emptying the honey bucket. So anyway, I was really expecting to be emptying the honey bucket a lot, but to be honest, the week ended even before I had to do that, because they were so eager to, you know, follow. And then, oh yeah, we had elders in the camp where they spoke to us of different values, and we also had students through the Chalisa Corporation that were there, that, you know, the new teachers could interact with during the week. And so to make that portion of the long story short, those 15 teachers now are all coming back, and those 15 teachers I did share, you know, I'm Facebook friends with some of them, and it's just beautiful to see them post pictures of them, you know, interacting with the village or doing cultural activities, and so the second portion I just want to share is working with these 12 teachers, and, you know, wanting them to continuing to impart with our culture. One of the things that was suggested that I followed through was sharing with the new teachers, like, one side of the standards, the teaching standards, and on the opposite side, sharing also our cultural standards. So, you know, they have those two to, you know, refer back to each other. Anyway, I wanted to share that.
Thank you, Abby. There was another question?
I didn't have a question.
Oh, comment.
Perhaps more a comment.
We like comments.
And this is just to impart the need, one, to be organized, and I believe that was the strength with the Alaska Native Knowledge Network, was the statewide organization, looking at regions and Alaska Native educators committing to those regions, and with that created a collective voice that those in the leadership roles too were very strategic in their statewide approach, whether it was working with the departments of education, the university system and structures, and working on the inside at that time with the Juneau School District, which is a challenge perhaps in itself at many levels, but what we're dealing with schooling is a system, a very complex system. So it's difficult for it to figure out how to make room for parent involvement, even though they might say we care about parents. The system isn't built that way. We want, through No Child Left Behind legislation, I always referred to it when I was a principal as one child at a time, because that's what you were doing. You were looking at data, which was a good thing in terms of performance, especially around Alaska Native student performance. But again, you're looking at a system, and I believe that where we're lacking is not only a huge teacher turnover, but also a principal turnover, and now a superintendent turnover. And with that, I've bared witness to all of the legs that were structured to hold, or the foundation to hold up Juneau's system, just totally taken away with the new leadership that we're experiencing. I'm retired. After 28 years with Juneau, I know very well the ins and outs and where the skeletons are and how you move things and how things happen. But in terms of the question around cultural standards, I'll give you an example. We were providing training, we were looking at the teacher evaluation tool, we were having it integrated into teacher hiring. There was a lot of effort that went into assuring that we were hiring the best teachers, and an expectation that they had a level of understanding beyond very basics of a new teacher coming in around Alaska studies or multicultural education. So there was a support network as well internally, and an expectation that our training would be culturally responsive. New leadership comes in, they, behind closed doors, worked on the teacher evaluation tool and then fast-tracked it. We had 20 minutes as principals to take a look at it and respond, and it was a done deal. That kind of sort of manipulation of process is really unfortunate, but I think it's something we have to be savvy to. I think what I'm hearing, and can shoot whatever at me, but yes, it can be one person at a time making a difference, but I think you can do so much more for the benefit of students if there's some level of organization, whether it be by region or institution. I'm tasked with, to give you an example, I'm working at the university right now with the PETUS program. There's a brochure, and it is funding for teachers. Lessons learned is that there was a great funding for stepping into university, but there was a lot of students that we were losing in the first and second year of school. And whether they changed career, realizing how challenging teaching is, or found a new interest. So the criteria of the program now is you have to be junior, senior, or graduate level to be eligible for funding, and maintain your grade point average. And I hope the brochure is helpful too, to bring back and share whether it's additional. We have PETA students who have graduated from the program and have been in teaching and are coming back for financial aid for additional endorsements. In part of my role, I'm tasked with creating culturally responsive in-servicing for the faculty, and they helped define it. It's going very well, great response for the 2 sessions so far. However, in my learnings with the university and the trials and tribulations, I had one person who I would label as an advocate or a ally say in the planning, this is well and good, it sounds great, but don't expect me to change my curriculum. And so there's some very real challenges that we all face. We lack organization and a collective voice. I appreciated that the state school board adopted one level of the cultural standards. But even if you look at the Department of Education, it's a system and it's very compartmentalized and so we're a very choppy system.
We are, and yet I think that we're making progress.
I think
We
we're
went
backsliding.
Yes, as somebody who started with the mentor project, just like Lolly said, at the end of the first year when we came back together, there were 22 of us, and we sat down and we said we need to Alaskanize this. Now, Lolly, you may have been there. You were in many of our groups. It was one of our circle groups at the end. I mean, we said that. That was in 2004. This is 2013, and we're finally doing it, and that's good. And it took too long, and it's better than not having been there at all. I want to see if there's any other questions. I didn't even hardly look over here. Are there any more questions about any one of the 4 programs? I have a suggestion for these cultural standards, and I did it in response to a request from Nita and Esther, who presented to our group last week. It was a really helpful thing for all of us to do. The 40 mentors went through the book, and the committee that put this together has a rubric, and we self-assessed. And so I would suggest you take this to your staff, you have them self-assess. And I gave them no directions other than the mentors are full release, so they do not have classrooms. So I had to say, think of your last classroom you had or the bulk of your classrooms and just, pick that one year that you could do this and self-assess. They came back with 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s on all 5 standards on every single indicator. I put together a spreadsheet, I sent it to the girls. They looked at it. It really was quite informative. It showed you where teachers felt they were in a particular indicator of a particular standard, and the girls took the strongest one, and they designed a lesson around it, and they delivered the lesson to them, and then they told them how they could use that lesson with standards. So I think a starting place for you is to just have them self-assess. And the key will be when you say, where's the evidence that you're a 4? It's really going to open up discussion, and discussion leads to where we are today, here in this room. And I think on behalf of Barb and Nita and Lolly, I'm gonna have to take her with me everywhere now. I just want to thank you for being such a flexible, cooperative, wonderful audience, coming in, adjusting as we did, and Sean, who covered all of my faux pas for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all for coming so early in the morning on Saturday, snowy Saturday. And thank the elders for being here, and thank you, Graham, and for the volunteers. If you see a volunteer, they're doing an awesome job organizing. So thank a volunteer today. So, there's going to be a poster session downstairs and brunch, I believe. So enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Oh.